Before we go into panel discussions, I just want to quickly give the floor to Dr. Djibril Diallo, who is going to talk a little bit about the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network. For those of you who are not, who do not probably know him very well, he has worked in many tremendous areas in Africa, the United Nations, high-ranking levels, working closely with the former Secretary General of the United Nations and working with the United Nations General Assembly. And now he has established an NGO, which is also recognized as one of the partner organizations with the United Nations, and is based in New York. And he's going to be talking a little bit about the work he's doing and how the Africans in diaspora can also be part of that network, because we want that collaboration, we want that common voice and strengthened voice. Dr. Diallo, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Israel. This is so exciting. I've been listening over the past hour with very great excitement, a lot of knowledge, and your initiative to have the database full support. As you mentioned, the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network is an international NGO headquartered in New York, which is a 501c3 organization for the United States, and also has partnership agreements with the United Nations. 3 points to start with. One, vis-a-vis this theme of this very important biodiversity conference, African conservation, we focus on trying to set up a special project since 2017 under the auspices of the United Nations to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa and in the diaspora. And the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network is present in about 80 countries of Africa and the diaspora. So this theme here focuses more on Goal 13, which Israel, you know it so well, and everyone else here, which calls for urgent action to combat climate change. And also Goal 13 is a cross-cutting goal for the 16 other goals. So that's point number one. Point number two, our goal has been really to focus. We're aware of what I would call the new diaspora. Ourselves having either moved to the diaspora or having been born and brought up, but we have focused much more on what I would call the old diaspora, namely people of African descent who were forcefully removed from the continent about 500 plus years ago. And that, according to the World Bank, I've got some statistics in this connection. If you combine the old and the new diaspora, you have close to 200 million people. Of those, the breakdown is that you have close to 40 million from the diaspora in North America. You have close to 113 million in Latin America, and 14 million in the Caribbean, and close to 4 million in Europe. These are all statistics that we have from the World Bank. So that is a big chunk of people of African descent that we are talking about within the framework of this theme. And then since we are talking about breathing life into the diaspora, is being referred to several times here, the diaspora being the 6th region of Africa. Obviously, the African Union has made this statement, which I would call a pious statement, but it has not really moved into concrete action. The way we have been working on it is, first of all, I'm very happy that so many of the speakers here have stressed the need to have Africans at the driver's seat in a lot of the research, in a lot of the activities which are happening. That's really refreshing. And I think that would be one of the key themes to come out of this gathering. So that in that connection, we used a number of entry points in order to support this strengthening of the ties between Africa and the diaspora. Number one, to strengthen the ties between the youth of Africa and the youth of the diaspora. Because, you know, the youth, it's very uncomfortable to work with the youth generally, because we, the young, tend to come with our projects and tell the youth, you need to do it this way, and it doesn't work, unfortunately. But if you find synergy in terms of listening to the youth, then you can use their creativity. And we have had a lot of successes in terms of having synergy being a bridge between the youth of Africa and the youth of the diaspora. Very, very strong networks there. Second point is that we have also used mayors, elected officials, as entry points towards reaching out to communities in this connection, so that we have been developing community partnerships between municipalities, say in the United States, and African municipalities, with a view to making sure that we develop that kind of direct partnership through sister city relations. And it has really worked very well, facilitating it, and then really going beyond sister city relations that we see, which is very often a ribbon cutting kind of exercise that does not take you very far. Third element, very quickly, is many of the movements that we see across our continent, Africa, are due to the challenges on the quality of education, the quality of higher education. So that how do we have a synergy between Africa and the diaspora, and towards improving the quality of higher education. And there we have about 100 universities in the United States alone, which are members of the network, with which we have been developing partnership agreements with universities in Africa, in different areas, which will have to improve access to education, also focus on equity within the educational context, such as advocating for equal rights for girls and women to higher education, as well as empowering and supporting women in entering into leadership roles in universities. So that's the third dimension. The fourth dimension is really the issue of the gender, bridging the gender gap. Because the United Nations says that no country in the world treats its women as well as it does its men. 193 countries. So to do that, the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network launched in 2019 a major campaign that uses the convening powers of sports and culture to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. You know, in football, soccer in the United States, when a player receives a red card, what happens to him or her? They get thrown out of the field. So that we need to make sure that we raise the bar in such a way that the discrimination, the gender-based violence, the harmful practices are really thrown out of the field as much as possible. And for that, we have a goal, which is to try and get 1 million signatures by the FIFA World Cup, which opens on the 21st of November in Qatar, in Doha, so that those who are watching this program and other participants can participate in this by going online and signing their pledge to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. And it's www.redcardpledge.com, so that we have engagements. We also have got pledges in order to make sure that that happens. Final point in this connection, we are talking here as Africans and friends of Africa. Africa is the most open continent that one can think about in terms of being welcoming to non-Africans, and I very, very much welcome this panel, which has got both Africans and non-Africans for the good of sustainable human development in Africa. So that we need to pay more attention to having a stronger communication strategy to project the Africa that we want, because the international community is imposing an Africa on us, which makes it very, very difficult to deal with partnership between Africa and the rest of the world. So that between us, whether it's the social media, whether it's organizations like the National Association of Black Journalists in the United States of America, which has got 4,000 journalists in the mainstream media, or the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we have a network between us that can show the ways in which we can share stories about islands of hope, how Africans are pulling themselves together in order to move forward. The stories are there, but they're not making their way in the media that matters, in the social media. So that we need to really have a group of partners among ourselves to have a specific working group to deal with the communication dimension of the African conservation and the dimension of biodiversity that we're dealing with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diallo. That is very wonderful. In fact, I was just thinking about it, that one very easy way that the Africans in diaspora, especially those who are living in the United States, can really help is that very last point you mentioned about the connecting with the Association of Black Journalists in the United States. And I think this is something that should be very easy, or something that the Africans in diaspora can really relate to and work with and help to build that strong and effective communication strategy, so that we're not just painting one narrative about Africa, which is often negative, especially in the media, but something that is more positive. So thank you very much for that contribution. I really appreciate that.